This man right here last weekend put on a hell of a show on Agenda 21. P.K. Lowry. Website? P.K. Lowry?
ETLiberty.com.
E.T. Liberty. Great guy. I got to talk about him now. Since October, this is Jim Sandman, John Birch Society.
Close to the mic, Leroy.
Friend of mine.
That's why it's there.
I'm also a member with him. Since October 2008, Jim served as a state coordinator for the John Birch Society in Tennessee, most Georgia and Alabama. He joined the society in 1999 as a volunteer leader. He was a computer system engineer, Lifeway Human Resources in Nashville for 8 years. He holds a bachelor's degree in Middle Tennessee State University in Computer Information Systems and an associate's degree in guitar performance.
Yes.
He's retired from the U.S. Navy Submarine Force, where he served on 4 submarines as a torpedo missile fire control system technician and chief petty officer. He was raised in Virginia, moved to Tennessee in '97 after his naval career. He currently lives in Las Casas, that's near Murfreesboro, with his wife Kim and their 2 sons who recently graduated from Middle Tennessee State University. Mr. Jim Sandman.
Leroy, that's pretty good for a Marine. Thank you for coming out tonight, and I hope you can hear. Can anyone hear? Everyone here in the back? As long as I'm right here, I think I'll be all right. Appreciate your coming out and your concern. I was asked to speak and give a little update on the National Defense Authorization Act, which I plan to do right now for about 5 minutes, and then we'll talk about Agenda 21. First, I'm going to move the mic over a little bit. Can everyone see the screen there behind me? As we know, it was signed into law on New Year's Eve from President Obama. And the 2 most egregious portions of it are known as Section 1021, Section 1022. The bulk of the National Defense Authorization Act does a whole bunch of other things that's normally done for the military. For instance, it's $662 billion in funding for the defense of the United States and its interests abroad. In a signing statement, President Obama described the act as addressing national security programs, Department of Defense healthcare costs, counterterrorism within the U.S. and abroad, and military modernization. The act also imposes new economic sanctions against Iran. It commissions reviews of the military capabilities of countries such as Iran, China, and Russia, and it refocuses the strategic goals of NATO towards energy security. But the most controversial portions, as you know, are these 2 sections, 1021, which is giving the power for the president to arrest and detain U.S. citizens without being charged and without trial. And the following section, which is a subparagraph of it, 1022, and other subsequent clauses under there, unlawfully give the president power to use the military to do the above. And we have a lot of good organizations like the Oath Keepers that are wanting to maintain their oath to the Constitution, and every citizen has that opportunity to help keep us back to the Constitution. And so this is very important. We're at a turning point. We have been for a little while. This will basically turn America into a war zone, a battlefield, as you may have heard in the news. And it turns Americans into potential suspected terrorists, which to most people here is not news. But welcome to the New World Order. And it's a de facto legislative repeal of the Posse Comitatus Act of 1874, which is the law forbidding the use of the military in domestic law enforcement. So that's the bad news. The good news is there's some things that we can do about that. I've got just a couple of slides here to show. On the federal level, we can support several bills. And if you have a pencil and paper, you may want to take some notes on this and bring this up to your state legislator, your congressman for the federal bills. Supporting H.R. 3676, which will amend that bad Section 1021 to restore due process to American citizens. And then also supporting Senate Version 2003 and H.R. 3702, the companion bill in the House, which also does that. It restores due process to the NDAA bill so that you have a trial, or you are charged if you're arrested with something. And then supporting also H.R. 3785, a bill that was recently introduced by Congressman Ron Paul, which would repeal Section 1021 totally from NDAA. Okay, and then, so those are some bills to support. We need to oppose Senate Bill 1698 and its companion H.R. 3166, known as the Enemy Expatriation Act. This is where the president can arbitrarily strip citizenship from Americans for engaging in or supporting hostilities against the United States. And the word hostilities is defined in the legislation as any conflict subject to the laws of war. And it was co-sponsored by Joel Lieberman and Scott Brown, Republican of Massachusetts, and in the Senate. And then in the House, it was sponsored by Charlie Dent, Republican of Pennsylvania. Just more Republicans that need some education on the limits of the Constitution. That's at the federal level. At the state level, we can also do this. Here in Tennessee, there's already a bill introduced by Bill Dunn of Knoxville, Cameron Sexton of Crossville in the in the House, State House, and the companion bill by Stacey Canfield from Knoxville to support HB 2619 and the Senate version 2669, which is the Law Enforcement Communications Act. And this criminalizes enforcement of any federal law, regulation, or policy that has been found to be unconstitutional by the state of Tennessee. It requires federal agents to get written permission from the county sheriff before making any arrests. This does put some teeth into what we mean by state sovereignty and stopping unconstitutional federal legislation from being enforced by federal agents. So they must first get permission, unlike what they did in Nashville recently to the Gibson Guitar Factory. In Davidson County, they didn't talk to the sheriff beforehand. They raided the Gibson Guitar Factory. The federal agents did. In fact, my next door neighbor works at Gibson Guitar. He's been there for over 20 years, and he was carted off by a Department of Homeland Security agent. So anyway, things like that would not happen with this bill. So those are the steps that we can take. Put the pressure on your congressman and your state legislators for that. And for more information on these are some of the sources that I consulted to put this together briefly. Of course, the John Birch Society, jbs.org. If you clicked on Act Now and then click on Federal Legislation Action Alerts, you'll get some more information on various legislation, this one included. And then you can also click on State Legislative Action Alerts for the state bills. And then on the New American Magazine, which is published by the John Birch Society, we have a few articles. Ron Paul calls the NDAA a slip into tyranny, written by Joel Wolverton. Some of you have heard Joel Wolverton. Anyone here? I think he came around. No? Okay, not around. All right, but anyway, he's an attorney, and he lives down near Chattanooga. And he also wrote another article, Obama Signs NDAA into Law. And then, of course, the Liberty Legal Foundation, with Van Arian leading that effort. And the 10th Amendment Center, 10thamendmentcenter.com, is another excellent source on these particular bills. And of course, the Library of Congress to get the latest on that. And as far as the latest, in that House bill, there's a couple other House bills going on. Okay, this is for, okay, I'll save that for Agenda 21. Yeah. Any questions on the federal or state legislation on the NDAA?
Jim, no question. I just noticed that you pointed Liberty Legal Foundation out, and I am on their mailing list because
Good.
they also are keeping up with Obama's, the proof that's come out that he's not fit to be president, he's not a citizen, all that stuff. But they sent an email about this NDAA thing that's going on, and they're working on, because I talked to them last night, they're working on a petition. And if you go to their website, they give you the name and numbers, because right now that bill is stuck in committee. But there needs to be pressure put on our representatives, our senators, to get to make their voice heard, because they've not voted on it yet, but they need to hear from people. And that site gives you names, telephone numbers, fax numbers, and they're working on a petition that you can just go online, sign, and send back to them. It's as simple as that. So it's Liberty Legal Foundation. They're taking care of everything. All the information's right there.
Good, yeah, he's doing good work, Van Irian. He ran for Congress but didn't make it, I understand. Any other comments or questions?
Could you tell me, I see that Ron Paul has obviously made a comment about it. Have any of the other candidates spoken out about the NDAA that you're aware of?
I'm sure they have. I can't quote any of them right now, I would imagine, but good question. It would be good. I mean, I don't know of them sponsoring any bills to fight it, but I imagine that they, on the campaign trail, have made some comments about NDAA. So, yes, sir.
I understand that 93 senators signed that bill.
93 senators.
Were the Tennessee senators signatories on that bill?
I think they both were.
Yes.
I think I looked at it. I think Corker and Alexander were on there. Yeah.
I believe that is correct. I did not look that up right before it came to verify, but
I think
it's pretty much uncalled for. They, and as we know, they both need to go.
yeah.
Yep.
Anybody can do a search for that online, just who voted for,
Yeah.
the NDA, and do a search.
True. The internet is great until they take it away. So utilize it while you can before they tax it or regulate it.
Monitor it.
Well, Mark Twain said, "Sometimes I wonder whether the world is being run by smart people who are putting us on or by imbeciles who really mean it." And I think it's a combination of both. There's some smart people up there, but there are some inept people going on as well, who are inept when it comes to the Constitution. And so I think Mark Twain made a very good observation there. This presentation on Agenda 21 comes from the John Birch Society. The president, John McManus, who served in the Marines back in the 60s as an officer, wrote this along with a guy named Christian Gomez, who wrote the little booklet that we have back there for $3 called Agenda 21 and You. It's about 28 pages or so. Excellent resource on the background of Agenda 21 and what you can do about it. Of course, the John Birch Society has been preaching against the United Nations since 1961, but a lot of people thought we were crazy or loony or kooks or conspiracy theorists. But we are just conspiracy factists. We quote from the mouths of the people that say it, and we research our information before we publish it. Now, if you've seen one of our videos called Overview of America, anyone here has seen Overview of America? Leroy. Oh, Leroy, you got to get these people to watch that here sometime. It's only about half an hour long, and it's a great little lesson on limited government. And one of the things that's stated in there is that America became great not because of what government was allowed to do, but from what government was prevented from doing. As you know, the Bill of Rights is basically a thou shalt not list for the government, the federal government. And so, this is where that federal regulations and bureaucracies are run amok when it comes to Agenda 21. And you'll see some of this you may have heard of. This may be some new information for others as well. No other country has this style of government like we have, and their citizens do not understand the liberties all the Americans enjoy. And please forgive me, I'm going to read some of this. Most of this, actually, it's a brand new presentation, so I don't have this memorized, but from Mr. McManus. Having been established as a constitutional republic, America is supposed to have a limited federal government and strong local and state governments that protect the people. Now imagine, if you could, an international organization coming in with an agenda to undermine liberties that's not compatible with the American way of life, that they promote eliminating private ownership of property, restricting civil liberties, capping energy consumption and water use, and controlling population size. Well, unfortunately, this is not a figment of a wild imagination or a conspiracy theory. This is exactly what Agenda 21 is all about from the United Nations. And it is being implemented in communities all across the U.S. under the guise of sustainable development. So for the rest of our time tonight, we'll take a closer look at the problems that we have here. Protecting the environment and saving the planet are worthy goals sought by any sensible person, but giving up precious freedoms to accomplish them is neither sensible nor necessary. We don't need to do that. Very few Americans would applaud if a bunch of blue-helmeted soldiers came in to your community right here in Morristown and started handing out restrictions regarding the use of energy, land, water, etc. After all, this is America, where we take care of our own problems without outside intervention. But, unfortunately, there are some who prefer a United Nations-led New World Order, the major part of which would include a maze of rules and restrictions governing everything from property rights to energy use to personal freedoms. Because advocates of such a world government understand the American spirit, they don't recommend dispatching UN troops to impose their designs. Instead, they are busily and deceitfully working to build the power of the world body without the populace realizing what is taking place. Hundreds of communities across our nation have already been lured into accepting hidden UN controls in the name of environmental protection. Without knowing where the many mandates originated and what they will eventually mean, local governing agencies have begun implementing programs under such labels as sustainable development, smart growth, resilient cities, or other headlines featuring the word green growth. These initiatives, however, stem from an overall UN-created plan whose long-range goal would have the United Nations exercise control over everything and everybody. It's all written out in their massive Agenda 21 document, which is about 1,100 pages. And if they were all fully implemented, it would lead to a total dominance of the United Nations over every behavior. This incredibly ambitious plan came to life in 1992 at the UN Conference on Environment and Development held in Rio de Janeiro. It was attended by 35,000 bureaucrats, UN officers, journalists, including one of our writers for the John Birch Society. His name is William F. Jasper. He writes for the New American Magazine and on the website. And he was written a book on the United Nations called The United Nations Exposed. Obviously, unfortunately, I don't have any of those here tonight. They're only like $3 from our website, jbs.org, The United Nations Exposed. But he was at this 1992 conference. The gathering produced a number of documents calling for ways to address questionable claims about environmental issues. As you know, there is no consensus on what is causing global warming. They like to say it's you and I. I like to think it's the sun, And so it's just a normal cyclical thing here. They're just looking for a way